We are now entering week 3 of the government shutdown. So far, no end in sight.
I was elected to protect our country. That's what I'm doing.
We're not going to put any offers on the table as long as people in charge of these negotiations accuse all of us who want a wall of being a racist.
Last week, al-Badwai, a al-Qaeda operative tied to the attack that the USS Cole was taken out.
You kill or you harm Americans, we are going to find you and we're going to hold you accountable.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is defending a laundry list of public misstatements.
There's a lot of people more concerned about being factually and semantically correct than about being morally right.
The Philadelphia Eagles stay alive after a heartbreaking...
Crazy. And welcome to another one. Live from Studio F, it's Fox and Friends, folks.
All right, we're in the middle of the second longest lockout ever. At Friday, it'll be number 1. Partial lockout.
Partial shutdown.
Shutdown. And the pressure's going to be beginning to grow on both sides if we get to Friday. But right now, the president's not sitting on his hands. Neither is the administration. He's making an offer. He's offering a steel barrier in hopes of a deal on the border. What's different about that? He's not saying a concrete wall 2,000 miles long.
Yeah, no more concrete. Now it's going to be steel. He says there have been high-level talks over the weekend. There's still no sign that the shutdown is going to end anytime soon.
Well, Kevin Corke is live at the White House with the very latest on the negotiations that went on over the weekend. Mr. Corke, good morning.
Good morning, guys, and a very busy weekend it was here at the White House. Let me share just part of the president's latest proposal. As you said, it's no longer just concrete. We're talking about steel, good old American steel. $5.7 billion for the steel barrier. More Border Patrol agents, super important. The president's proposal also wants to add more personnel to ICE and clearly more detention beds and technology. A win, they say, for American steel and the safety of the American people.
We'll build a steel barrier. Steel. It'll be made out of steel. It'll be less obtrusive and it'll be stronger. And we're able to use our great companies to make it. That gives us great strength at the border.
But Nancy Pelosi says, listen, no matter what, we don't want you to have money to fund a wall. Most importantly, we want to figure out a way to end this shutdown. Here's what she said in an interview on Sunday.
The meeting at the White House was to open up government. The impression you get from the president that he would like to not only close government, build a wall, but also abolish Congress.
So effectively what she's trying to suggest is the president is trying to sort of run over the co-equal branches of government. The White House will tell you, obviously, that is not the case. He is committed to the safety and security of the American people. Day 17, the shutdown continues, and I have it on good authority from a senior White House official that the outreach to congressional Democrats will continue today. Guys, I'll keep you posted on that, but for now, back to you. Happy Monday.
All right. Thank you very much, Kevin Corke. So this is what negotiating looks like. The president and his White House budget director sent to the congressional leaders a list of exactly what he wanted. As Kevin just said, $5.7 billion for a steel barrier. But also, there were some things that are Democratic priorities in there. $800 million to address the humanitarian crisis on the southern border. In other words, when families or children come across the border, $800 million to help house them for a little while, take care of their medical needs, feed them as well. And they have signaled a willingness to restore some version of a Barack Obama-era program that allowed children in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador to apply for refugee resettlement in the United States. So the president saying, I want the wall, and Democrats, I'm going to give you these things you want if we can negotiate.
Yeah, if you read the letter, we're holding the letter here. You can get it on the White House website if you're interested in it. But you can read through what the president's reasons are for wanting to build this wall, and some things are pretty shocking. He says the immigration court backlog is nearly 800,000 cases. He goes on to say that 300 Americans killed each year from heroin, and 90% of that heroin comes across our southern border.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
It is. Democratic officials familiar with the negotiations over the weekend said no progress was made. They wanted more details. They got it today. And just so you know, no one's really messing with these statistics, and it's pretty alarming. In Yuma, Arizona, 87% of those coming across the border are families. 60% are children. 25,000 families came across in November of our southern border. That is a one-month record. And in El Paso, 200 kids a day are going into shelters that were built mostly for males, single men, because that was the problem. It isn't anymore. Senator Lindsey Graham was on Face the Nation yesterday and says, we have a fundamental difference.
We're having to negotiate with people who want to abolish ICE, not support ICE. We're having to negotiate with people who see the Border Patrol agents gassing children rather than defending our borders as professional law enforcement officers. And we're negotiating with people who will give us $1 for the wall, even though it's immoral, and accuse all of us who support a wall as part of border security as racist. As long as the radical left is in charge, we're never going to get anywhere. The president will compromise, but he will not capitulate. So that's where we're at. But I'm not going to negotiate with somebody who calls the Border Patrol agents a bunch of Nazis when they're trying to defend the border against a mob.
Well, a high-ranking Democratic official told the Washington Post, and it's printed in their paper this morning, there was no progress made over the weekend because the White House has not been forthcoming about how all that money would be used or why the request is so much more than the White House was using before. Nonetheless, in all the negotiations, Vice President Pence has been clear. There is a crisis at our southern border that needs to be addressed.
And I would add this. He went on to say, I'd like to sit down with Dick Durbin. And I imagine, like Chris Coons, who's coming up in 10 minutes, who is not going to get into the rhetoric, is not going to say, I'm going to give you $1, is not going to pretend that a fence is immoral, because we have 600 miles of fence. Have we been immoral since we built the 600 miles of fence, which many Democrats have called for more, like Dick Durbin? Were we immoral a year ago when Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham went up to the president and said, here's $25 billion to build your wall or fence in turn for a pathway to citizenship for the DACA, eligible kids who are now young adults? I mean, to say it's immoral is a non-starter.
Well, there's someone who's not for the wall, and that's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the darling, the youngest person who is now a congresswoman representing New York. She sat down with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes, and he asked her about the gaffes that she's made in the past and her fuzzy math. Listen to some of the gaffes just to refresh your memory, and then we'll show you some of that video of Anderson Cooper.
In order for us to feel safer in our streets, our churches, our schools, and our homes, we must abolish ICE.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements. I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue. Unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs. Capitalism has not always existed in the world, and it will not always exist in the world. Medicare for all is actually much cheaper than the current system that we pay right now.
Right, and fact checkers like the Washington Post have given her 4 Pinocchios for saying things that are completely wrong on things like the cost of programs she supports. Nonetheless, last night on 60 Minutes, Anderson Cooper asked her about those, and here's how she explained the mistakes.
If people want to really blow up one figure here or one word there, I would argue that they're missing the forest for the trees. I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
Being morally right.
That's an interesting comeback to that question. I think it left Anderson Cooper befuddled. But she also talked about a lot of things. Number one, I think she's had a remarkably easy run of things, even for 60 Minutes last night. I mean, that was not a hard-hitting interview. The other thing she brought up is the fact that she wants people taxed as high as 80–90% if you make $10 million or more, or she calls them the tippy top. So that's great. If you want to find out how to tell people not to make a lot of money, you take 80% of what they make and tell them we're taking it all, and they won't do it.
The 60 or 70% rate kicks in at 10 million. Everything else is progressive up to that point.
Oh, that makes sense. I would also
that's
add,
how it works.
That's great. But I think that one thing she's saying, if her plan goes forward, and I don't think it has momentum, what she doesn't understand and what Barack Obama never fully understood is for whatever policy you put together, people in business have a counter policy to beat whatever it is. So if you actually want to inspire people to make money and to be successful and hire other people, don't take all of their money. If you take all of it, there's no motivation there.
Yeah, and the economy grows when you don't tax the rich so much because they spend more money, they hire more employees.
Not according to her.
Well, one of the things she said was everybody has two jobs. That was not proven right, but we do know somebody who does have two jobs, and that's Jillian, who not only does the news on this program, she hosts Fox and Friends First.
That's right. I mean, I technically have one job, but two jobs under that umbrella.
Two shows.
You could say. True. All right, let's get you caught up on the story that we're following, guys. And a community is mourning the death of a Utah police officer killed in the line of duty. Officer Joseph Shinners died in a weekend shootout with a suspect he was trying to arrest.
He understands sacrifice. He is the officer who you would want to show up at your door in your biggest crucible moment.
The suspect could face murder charges. Shinners is a 3-year police veteran. A GoFundMe page is raising money for his wife and 1-year-old son. To donate, you can head to foxandfriends.com. An al-Qaeda terrorist behind the deadly attack on the USS Cole is killed in an airstrike in Yemen. Jamal al-Badawi planned the 2000 bombings, murdered 17 sailors. Kirk Lippold, the USS Cole's commander during the attack, joined us earlier, thanking U.S. intelligence for never giving up.
It sends a strong signal that the U.S. government is still willing to invest the time, the intelligence assets, that if you kill or you harm Americans, we are going to find you and we're going to hold you accountable.
President Trump tweeted his support for the airstrike. The Golden Globes host steered clear of politics, but that didn't stop a British actor from speaking out. Christian Bale bashing Senator Mitch McConnell and former Vice President Dick Cheney, who he portrayed in the film Vice.
I will be cornering the market on charisma-free. What do you think? Mitch McConnell next? That could be good, couldn't it? Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
It was a big night for Bohemian Rhapsody, the film winning Best Motion Picture, an honor many thought would go to A Star is Born. Send it back to you guys.
Now, you know, Star is Born can get back. There's going to be another award show, the Oscars, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. So
Right.
I'd probably say a bigger show.
Lady Gaga had this long, big, beautiful blue gown, and her hair matched. She dyed her hair the same color as
And
the
it was great seeing Carol Burnett, who
love
Lifetime Achievement Award started last night in her honor. It will happen forever now.
And red hair, not blue, right?
Correct.
12 minutes after the hour.
President Trump says he can declare a national emergency over the border wall, and one top Democrat says the president's right.
There is a provision in law that says the president can declare an emergency. It's been done a number of times.
Okay, so maybe that's what he's going to do, but the big question is, will Democrats come to the table? We're going to talk to Democratic Senator from the great state of Delaware, Chris Coons. He's with Brian next.
Plus, what questions do you have about your money and the economy? Email them to us because Chris Hogan from Ramsey Solutions is going to answer them live.
From his bus.
Does President Trump have the ability, have the authority to declare a national emergency, have the military build his wall?
Well, unfortunately, the short answer is yes. There is a provision in law that says the president can declare an emergency. It's been done a number of times.
Wow, the new Democratic chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Adam Smith, saying the president can declare a national emergency and build the border wall. Joining us now to discuss from his perspective, Democratic Senator of Delaware, Chris Coons. Senator, do you think the president does have the ability to do that? And do you look at the border situation right now as crisis worthy?
Well, I'm one of many Democrats who has voted for and is willing to invest in border security. I do think we need to have secure borders. A lot of the fight we seem to be having now is over exactly how we will improve our border security. The rest of that clip from Congressman Adam Smith, he said the president does have the power to declare emergencies, but if he uses it in this way at this time, it's very likely to face legal challenge. There's a well-settled Supreme Court case in which President Truman tried to nationalize the steel industry during the Korean War, and that was overturned by the Supreme Court. It's not clear whether the president could use the military to construct a border fence. There's some recent decisions and a statute from '76 that says he can't. The better way for us to move forward, Brian, is to reach a responsible compromise here that recognizes our broken immigration system needs to be resolved, and we need to invest in border security.
President I know you wanted to get details on this, but one of the things he said is, listen, I'm off the concrete. You guys don't want that. Steel slats, fencing, and steel is what I'm in for. Is that the type of compromise, movement towards compromise at $5.7 billion that you might be able to support?
Well, I'll remind you, just 2 weeks ago, departing Chief of Staff John Kelly, former Secretary of Homeland Security, rolled out the same idea. He said, look, months and months ago, we got away from a concrete border wall and talked steel slats because it's what we need at the border. And the president the next day, literally on Twitter, said, no, we're still committed to a concrete border. I hope the president will hold to that position because that is a minor but important difference in technology. A 4th century concrete wall that you can't see through will be a less effective border barrier. Look, not 1 mile of new border fencing has been built this year, despite the $1.3 billion we appropriated last year. I am someone who's willing to see more border fencing as long as we choose a technology that DHS says is going to be effective. And I do think his moving towards steel slats rather than concrete wall, if it holds, is important. The person who's missing from these negotiations is Mitch McConnell, the majority leader. Look, the majority leader had us go out of session just before Christmas when the entire Senate unanimously voted for a package that would have kept the government open.
Gotcha.
He's now saying, I'm out of this until the president says what he will clearly stand for. What you've just cited there is progress.
All right, Senator, I'd feel a lot better if you were into this, too, because you seem to have a level head and want to get things done. Senator Chris Coons, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, as the country says goodbye to a fallen California police officer killed in the line of duty, a big update from his family.
Was shot and killed in Newman City early this morning. The suspect is still at large.
You have to understand this was not supposed to happen here. My department is hurting.
A massive manhunt is still ongoing for an armed and dangerous man.
The suspect is in our country illegally. He doesn't belong here. He's a criminal. We will hunt down this coward.
Now take a look at this heartbreaking photo of Officer Singh, his wife, and their 5-month-old son on Christmas, hours before he was shot and killed.
Gustavo Perez Arriaga was arrested earlier today.
I was waiting for this to happen. I'd like to thank you working day and night to make this happen.
As we see the video of your brother with his son, what goes through your mind?
He was waiting for the son to talk, walk, and it just breaks my heart that he'll never be able to see that.
It's gut-wrenching. We have to let these families know that when something like this happens, when they go out to protect their communities, that we're going to stand with the family that are left behind and take care of them.
A California police corporal gunned down by an illegal immigrant will be laid to rest today.
He came to this country with one purpose, and that purpose was to become a police officer. We will say goodbye today, but you will always be in our hearts.
Friends, family, and fellow law enforcement mourning the loss of California Police Corporal Ronald Singh after he was tragically killed in the line of duty. His suspected killer, an illegal immigrant.
It was right here on Fox and Friends that the Tunnel to Towers Foundation pledged to raise $300,000 to help pay off the Singh's family's mortgage.
That's right. And they had not done that last week, but CEO Frank Siller joins us right now with a big update. And Frank, you were here on the program at the end of last week. You made your pitch. You told his story as we just recapped over the last 2 weeks' worth of TV coverage. And what's your update?
Well, I'm very proud to announce, with the help of Fox and Friends viewers, and most certainly you guys here, that we not only reached the $300,000 to pay off the mortgage, because of the generosity of Americans that we went over that, we were able to give them an extra $50,000 for educational needs for the 5-month-old. And it goes even beyond that, because we even raised more, because most people, also, when they signed up to help the Singh family, they joined us on an $11 a month campaign that we're trying to help every police officer, firefighter, and Gold Star family in America that die in the line of duty, that have young kids. They joined us on that mission too. So we had so many other people that joined us on that. So I couldn't be more grateful to your viewers that we've been able to raise all this money and relieve that burden for this great family.
It's so beautiful that you're doing that, because she's going through so much. She lost her husband, and then in addition to that, she's worried about how she's going to make the house payments because he's not around and his income's not coming in, and how she's going to put her child through school. So thank you so much. Thank you to our viewers who are giving that additional money. You went out there, you went to California, you sat down with her, you talked with her, you talked to some of the officers that he served with. Can you tell us what those conversations were like?
Well, they were all broken up. I mean, they lost a brother. You know, when you live with the police department, the fire department, it's a brotherhood. They're like, you can't be any closer. But they came together. They helped lift this family, the Singh family. Mika Singh, the widow, wanted to pass on her thanks to Fox and Friends, to you personally, and to the viewers, because they know without your help that this couldn't happen. She expressed such relief that she's never going to have to worry about this mortgage again, and that there's other money to help her
there you are
son.
Together.
And the kindness of the viewers who heard her story told through you, and then donations to Tunnel to Towers, will be able to start to put their son through college. I mean, that is a legacy that family's never going to forget, Frank.
No, it's been incredible. Thank you for having me on here for the last couple of weeks.
And Frank, it's just unbelievable that they are immigrants. They did immigrate here to this country to pursue the American dream, but they did it the right way. And they were killed by someone who not only was a criminal, but came here the wrong way.
No, it speaks volumes that America, the greatness of America, were born for immigration, but come here the correct way, and you can live the American dream. And that's why we got to protect all Americans.
So as the banner says at the bottom, $350,000 raised for the fallen California police officer's family. If you would still like to help out, because whatever money you got is still going to go to his education, the son's education, visit tunnel2towers.org to donate. Tunnel2towers.org.
Yes, especially the $11 a month. It makes a big difference. We're going to help every police officer and firefighter and Gold Star family in America if most of your viewers sign up.
Fantastic.
Right. Thank you. God bless you all.
God bless you.
All right. It is 7:30 now in New York City. Fox and Friends returns in 2 minutes.
Donald Trump supporters are older, less educated, less prosperous, and they are dying early. Their lifespans are decreasing, and many are dying from alcoholism, drug overdoses, liver disease, or simply a broken heart caused by economic despair.
Will there be any Trump voters left to vote in 2020 at this rate with all the alcoholism and liver disease? That was Hank Johnson saying something I think everybody agreed was almost everybody agreed was pretty despicable last week.
His version of the deplorable comment. He was speaking at the NAACP. He's from Georgia. Congressman Dan Crenshaw had a problem with that. He is the man from Texas. You probably saw him on Saturday Night Live. You've heard us interview him before. And he was just offended by that because he is a Republican. He's a Trump supporter. And he had this to say about those comments that were made in Georgia.
Let's call them drug addicted, uneducated, unhappy alcoholics. This is a cowardly form of politics. These people are exercising their right and their voice the only way they can, which is through their vote. They don't have a TV show, they don't have a radio show, they don't have a weekly column or a big social media following. They have a vote. And you use your public platform to insult and demean them. This is not the behavior we expect from a member of Congress. So I'll leave you with this. Pick on somebody your own size. Pick on me if you like. My office will be right down the hall from yours. I'll see you in Washington.
See you in Washington. Crenshaw dismissed. Johnson also compared the president to Adolf Hitler. And he said, okay, Mr. Johnson, President Trump is a lot of things, but he's not Hitler, he said in the video. He did not kill millions of people. He did not start a world war. He does not have any concentration camps.
And when he also says, yeah, you can go after the president, but when you go after the voters who support the president and put them in a category like that, that's when you've gone too far. That's what he meant when he said, or pick on me if you want. That's fine. He goes, I also hold me to accountable. If I ever do anything like that, I hope you tell me to get back in line.
I love that. Think about the people in your neighborhood. You know, they don't have TV shows. They don't have columns, like you said. They don't have social media, big social media followings. They have their vote. And when they go to the polls to voice their concerns, they should be respected for that.
Well, we'd like to hear your comments. Email us, friends@foxnews.com. We are also this morning on Facebook.
How big is Dan Crenshaw getting? Almost every day, ever since he was called out ridiculously by Pete Davidson and apologized.
I was thinking you were going to give an awkward toss over to Jillian.
I'm sure he still will, I'm sure.
No, how great is, he said.
Oh.
And I thought, anyway, so do you want to follow up with an awkward toss to Jillian? What could you say this morning?
No, there's nothing awkward. I think we have great synergy. Jillian, great to see you.
Oh, so you just failed under pressure, I think.
I failed miserably.
You had nothing, Jillian.
You had nothing. Took one and only time, Brian, and nothing. All right,
Here's somebody who has never has nothing. Here's Jillian.
There we go. See, I knew you had it in you.
Okay.
Let's talk about what's going on in California. Outgoing California Governor Jerry Brown is standing by his state's sanctuary status. This despite local law enforcement officials blaming those policies for a police officer's murder. Gustavo Arriaga, an illegal immigrant with a criminal record, is charged with killing Corporal Ranil Singh. Brown says legislation he signed back in 2017 is not to blame.
I think people now are looking to blame somebody because of the terrible things that happened, but it had nothing to do with the law of California.
Tunnel to Towers CEO Frank Siller will join us in the next hour for an update on the organization's fundraising efforts. Alleged sonic attacks that sickened diplomats at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba may have just been bugs. Scientists at the University of California studied recordings of a so-called mysterious noise causing concussion-like symptoms in staffers in Havana. They say the high-pitched sound is actually Caribbean crickets, but researchers add it still doesn't rule out a sonic attack. Joe Biden is close to deciding on a 2020 presidential run. Democratic officials tell the New York Times the former vice president will likely make a decision in the next 2 weeks. The Times reports Biden has told friends he believes he is the party's best chance to beat President Trump. Big donors are pressuring Biden to decide by the end of January. And, you know, celebrities weren't the only ones in the spotlight at the 76th Golden Globe Awards. A woman carrying a tray of Fiji water seen photobombing stars as they posed on the red carpet. Many on Twitter quick to point out it seemed like she was deliberately trying to get herself noticed. The model has been nicknamed the, quote, Fiji water girl on social media.
You know, some companies pay a lot of money for that kind of product placement. I wonder if it was just an accident.
She's in a lot of photos, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, more people are talking about her than any of the celebrities, really.
It's kind of funny.
And she kind of had that smirk on her face and all the pictures.
Like she knew.
Yeah.
I'm in everybody's picture. I'm photobombing world. Meanwhile, Adam Klotz is on the streets of New York City. Anybody photobombing him? Nope, not a soul.
I was hoping that Fiji water girl would be out here, but no. Unfortunately, I'm out here all by myself, and I've got some breaking news. It's winter outside. Boy, it has gotten really cold. Mild temperatures over the course of the weekend, at least on the East Coast. That has changed this morning as we're talking about wind chills down into the teens here across much of the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic. Those are areas we're talking about. 18 degrees currently here in New York City. Feels like 27 degrees back in Cleveland, 35 degrees in Chicago. Talking about these areas, you see warmer air just off to the west, but there's a lot of moisture moving through that warm air. And when it hits this cold air, we're going to be talking about snow by tomorrow morning. Likely just rain here in New York City as the temperatures are going to climb just a little bit, guys. But snow across New England. It's feeling like winter out here this morning, and maybe it's here at least for the next couple of days. Back to you.
All right, Adam, thank you very much. A preview of coming attractions.
But that is big news. That it is winter.
Yep,
that was
has been for a couple of weeks.
Journalist.
Meanwhile, we've got some other big news, exciting news next week on Thursday, January 17th. This program, Fox and Friends, is going to have a live studio audience.
Get ready. If you would like a chance to be a part of our live studio audience, you can email us at friendslive@foxnews.com. Terms and conditions apply and will be explained if we contact you.
Right. We'll talk about those terms and conditions. It'll be an exciting morning, and we hope to see you all there, especially because we chose a picture I haven't seen since the photo shoot. With me losing balance.
Right, we're falling back.
So we're doing something we've never done before, and you're talking about your picture?
You're right. That's wrong.
You know, we have, in the past, for the last couple of years, we've taken the show on the road to diners all across America to bring people into the show. Now you can actually come to the show, and rather than stand outside the window, we'll put you in the studio. So go ahead, enter if you will, and we'd love to see you here in the studio, Studio F, next Thursday.
Will we do chairs or bleachers?
I think chairs.
Chairs.
I'm thinking if it works out in a big crowd.
So we're going to have to get here earlier and unfold them. So your mental note. There you
Thursday.
go. Right.
Don't call out sick on Thursday. The audience needs you.
Exactly. Up until then, it doesn't matter. 20 minutes out before the top of the hour. Senator Chris Coons will be joining us. He'll be live. Congressman Steve Scalise will be here, too. And Senator Marsha Blackburn, all live this morning.
Plus, more and more states are starting to legalize marijuana. But is it really as harmless as some people want to convince you that it is?
Like John Boehner.
Our next guest says they have the secret pot advocates don't want you to know about.
To you back with some headlines. United Airlines is tightening the leash on emotional support animals today. The company will no longer allow service pets on flights longer than 8 hours. Kittens and puppies under 4 months old won't be allowed on any flights under any circumstances. And the happiest place on earth is about to cost you more. Disneyland in California is raising prices for tickets and annual passes up to 25%. The cheapest one-day off-peak ticket is now $104. It comes before Disney opens its new Star Wars themed park this summer. Steve.
All right, thank you very much. The trend of legalizing recreational marijuana is on the rise. New York and New Jersey are two of the latest states considering legalizing it. But public opinion on pot has changed drastically over the last 20 years. More people support legalizing it now more than ever before. But is marijuana as harmless as most people think? Here to break down the facts is Alec Berenson, a former New York Times reporter and the author of the new book. It comes out tomorrow. You can pre-order it today. It's called Tell Your Children, The Truth About Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. Alec, good morning to you.
Thanks for having me on, Steve.
In the New York Times, they've got an article on this, and the headline is, What Advocates of Legalizing Pot Don't Want You to Know.
Yes, I can tell you that's a very good article because I wrote it. So pot has been, or I like to call it marijuana or cannabis. I like to take it seriously. But advocates for cannabis have said for really 20 years, this is a harmless substance. No one should go to jail for growing it, for trafficking it, because it's not dangerous. And that's just not true.
How is it dangerous?
It's really neurotoxic. People say
What does that mean?
It means it's bad for your brain. That's a fancy way of saying it's bad for your brain. There are very good studies showing that it's linked to psychosis, which is a break from reality, from schizophrenia, and those conditions can cause violence.
About 20 years ago, it seems like there have been advocates across the country trying to introduce it as a more mainstream thing, that it's not so bad, don't worry about it. Who are those people?
Well, honestly, it's a lot of the elite media that's bought into this. The number one group that's encouraged legalization in the last 20 years is the Drug Policy Alliance, which is a well-funded group. Actually, George Soros is its largest backer. And this has become, it's really become a Democratic issue, although some Republicans now support legalization too. And I think that lost in the partisanship here has been the fact that the science has gone the other way. The science in the last 20 years has shown that cannabis is dangerous.
We've got some statistics to show the folks at home. Pot users who are high while driving, 69% of pot users said they've driven high at least once in the past year. 27% of all users said they drive stoned almost daily, which is terrifying. 10% of all users think it makes them a better driver. Why is it that in the past advocates have overstated the how unimpacted you're going to be?
I think a lot of people don't know what the statistics really are. You have to read the studies, you have to read the science. Well, I spent, more than a year writing this book. My wife is a forensic psychiatrist. She's a doctor who specializes in dealing with the criminally mentally ill, and she's the one who said, you need to write this book. You used to be a journalist, you have credibility, you should write, you should really look at this. And the more I read, the more I realized how serious an issue this is. But if you don't do the work and you just, watch Seth Rogen getting stoned, you think it's funny.
Yeah. Meanwhile, across the country, states, it seems like one by one are putting it on their ballots whether or not they should legalize it. 10 states have legalized recreational marijuana. 33 have legalized medical marijuana. Now, you're not here to take a stand on whether or not marijuana is right or not. You're just out to tell people, look, it's dangerous.
Yes. Yeah. Listen, alcohol is dangerous too. You drink too much, bad things can happen. You can get in car accidents. You can get in fights. Alcohol's legal. But we know alcohol can be dangerous, and we don't let people drink and drive. We need to tell people the real risks of marijuana, and we need to have a reasonable regulatory scheme, whether that means that we're going to have a lot of taxes on it, and I realize that's a dirty word here, but if we're going to discourage its use one way or another, if we're going to have criminal penalties for trafficking and dealing of it, we just can't say, hey, this is fine, everybody should smoke, it's harmless, because that is not true.
We have heard that, we're going to legalize pot and the state's going to get a whole bunch of tax money. How's that working out?
There's some tax revenue, but it's much less than people realize. In Colorado, which is the state that has...
Does it outweigh the public safety risk?
I don't think so. In Colorado, less than 1% of the state budget is cannabis-related taxes. And violent crime is soaring in the states that legalized. Cory Booker said when he introduced the federal legalization bill that violent crime was falling, and that was not true. Booker was wrong, and no one called him on it because no one knows. But the fact is that aggravated assault and murders are soaring in the 4 states that legalized first.
Well, you just called him out. Let's see if he responds. It's an eye-opening book. It comes out tomorrow. It's called Tell Your Children the Truth About Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. Alec Berenson, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.
Good work. All right, straight ahead on this Monday, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the new congresswoman, hasn't always gotten her facts straight, right?
I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue. Unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs. Capitalism has not always existed in the world.
Last night, we saw her explain those gaps. You're going to want to hear that one. And what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. At least that's the ad from Apple in Vegas at the Super Bowl of Technology. Kurt the Cyber Guy, live from Vegas, coming up.
Massive TVs and a lot of artificial intelligence. The Consumer Electronics Show is about to kick off in Las Vegas, considering the Super Bowl of the tech world for many.
This year, more than 4,500 companies will be showing off the latest and greatest technology and gadgets that everyone's going to want to get their hands on.
And here to give us a preview, live from Las Vegas, is Kurt Knutson, the Cyber Guy. Hey, Kurt.
Ainsley, good morning to you. Hey guys, we're talking about, about 180,000 attendees coming here to Las Vegas. Behind me, the world famous Vegas Strip. Vegas strong right now in trade war. I'm not feeling it here. About a third of the audience from the international location outside of the U.S. And we're talking about 2.7 million square feet of electronic space and cool gadgets that are coming out, including this one I'm showing you that should be flying around me momentarily, called Air Selfie. Air Selfie came out last year, and they've got 3 new models this year that let you, if you could throw your phone up into the air, you would end up with this thing taking pictures of you wherever you go. It's called the Air Selfie, and they have 3 models that will be coming out later this year. It is a brilliant idea because you don't need to know how to fly anything. It's a flying camera. You throw it up in the air, and there it goes, taking your pictures or video. And another thing that's come out here is a brilliant invention, also from Italy. This thing is it's called the Mookie, and it's from these guys that came up with an idea of putting a camera on the front of a dog dish. And this keeps the cat from eating the dog food and the dog from eating the cat food. Does that make sense? It's got Pet Face ID inside of it with this device. Pretty incredible idea. When you're away from home and you can make sure that, well, Fido isn't eating Fluffy's food. That has just won a design award out here in Las Vegas. Last night also, just hours ago, Samsung with an announcement of 2 things. Micro LED technology, just about the most spectacular TV technology I have seen. You walk up and you cannot even see the pixels on this. Brilliant modular idea coming where you, instead of buying a particular size TV, you would buy modules and just say, all right, I got a 120-inch wall here to cover. Let's just put a bunch of these squares together and it becomes one picture. They also announced an enhancement to their line. The QLED line now goes up to 8K. something we're seeing out here. 8K resolution is 4 times the resolution of 4K. What that means is you walk up to this set, also stunning artificial intelligence enhanced pictures, brilliant, brilliant stuff.
All right.
And then you walk up to the show
Kurt, we'll have
where
to stop you
everybody
there.
goes through.
Yeah, we'll have to stop you there because we're running out of time, but I appreciate it. Great stuff.
Thanks, Kurt. All right, coming up, Senator Chris Coons and Congressman Steve Scalise and Senator Marsha Blackburn, all live here this morning.
I'm going to stick around.
It was time to update the bathroom.